I'm 88 years old, and most of the people who once knew me well are gone now. My wife's been buried 12 years, my younger brother, 8. Even the men I worked beside for 30 years are mostly names carved into stone. When you outlive almost everyone, you start to feel like a witness more than a participant, like you're sitting in the last row of a long, quiet church after the service has ended. I didn't think I would make it this far. Not because I was reckless, I wasn't. But life has a way of thinning the herd. Accidents, illness, quiet despair, bad luck at the wrong moment. I've stood at more hospital beds than I care to count. I've shaken hands with men for the last time without knowing it was the last time. People sometimes ask me how I made it to 88. They expect something clever, a secret diet, a special routine. But the truth is, I followed a few simple rules. I didn't even call them rules back then. They were just habits, choices, sometimes stubbornness. They kept me alive, though not always in the way I thought they would. The first rule was simple: stay useful. When I was in my 20s, fresh out of the service, I had more pride than sense. I married young, took a job at a machine shop. It wasn't glamorous work, loud, greasy, repetitive, but it paid, and I told myself that as long as I was useful, I'd be safe. A man who's useful has a place. That's what I believed. So I showed up early, left late, said yes when others said no. I learned every machine on that floor. I kept my head down, I didn't complain. When layoffs came in the 70s, my name wasn't on the list. I remember driving home that evening, ripping the steering wheel, feeling like I'd outrun something terrible. Staying useful kept food on the table. It kept my children in warm coats. It kept my wife from having to work when the babies were small. But it also kept me away. I missed piano recitals because the foreman needed me on a Saturday. I skipped a camping trip because a shipment was behind. I told myself there would be another recital, another summer. Children grow quietly. You don't notice the distance forming until they stop asking if you're coming. The second rule: don't owe anyone. My father drilled that into me. He grew up during the Depression. Owing money meant owing dignity. So I paid cash whenever I could. We lived in a smaller house than we qualified for. We drove used cars. My wife clipped coupons at the kitchen table. I fixed things myself, even when I was tired. There's a kind of peace in not owing. When the market dipped, when neighbors lost homes, I slept at night. But there's another side to that rule. I didn't owe anyone money, but I owed people time, attention, softness, and those debts I postponed. The third rule: don't talk about your pain. That one came from the war. You learn quickly that fear spreads fast. So you swallowed it. You joke instead. You change the subject. When I came home, I carried certain images with me. A friend bleeding into sand. A letter handed to a mother. I never told my wife the details. I told her it was fine, that I was fine. For years I thought that made me strong. But silence doesn't erase pain. It just buries it alive. Sometimes it leaked out as anger over small things. A broken dish, a noisy room. My children learned to read my face and stay clear when my jaw tightened. I wasn't violent, I wasn't cruel, but I was distant. There's a difference. The fourth rule: keep moving. I've seen men retire and shrink within a year. So when I finally left the shop at 65, I built a garden, nothing fancy, tomatoes, beans. A pear tree that took 5 years to bear fruit. Every morning I walked the same loop around the neighborhood, rain or shine. I fixed fences, cleaned gutters, shoveled snow for a widow down the street, long after my knees started complaining. Movement kept my body from rusting. It kept my heart steady. Doctors always seemed surprised at my numbers. I wasn't special. I just didn't sit down for too long. But keeping busy can also keep you from sitting with what's missing. When my wife got sick, I moved even more. Hospital to pharmacy, pharmacy to insurance office. I organized papers, I cleaned drawers, I researched treatments late into the night. Activity felt like control. The fifth rule, love one woman. I wasn't perfect at it. There were moments, long stretches even, where we felt more like co-workers than lovers. Raising children does that. Paying bills does that. Exhaustion does that. But I never strayed. Not because I lacked opportunity. Because I knew that once you break that kind of trust, something pure never quite returns. I had seen it in other homes. Loving one woman gave my life a spine, a steady line running through decades. We argued about small things, curtains, salt, which grandchild needed stricter discipline. But when she laughed, really laughed, it still caught me off guard. In her final months, when the cancer had hollowed her cheeks, I sat by her bed and read aloud from the newspaper, the same way I had when we were young and couldn't afford television. She squeezed my hand one evening and said, "You were steady." Not romantic, not poetic, steady. I held on to that word after she was gone. The sixth rule, don't chase happiness, chase peace. Happiness is loud. It spikes and fades. A promotion, a new car, applause at a retirement dinner. I had those moments. They were pleasant. Then they were over. Peace is quieter. It's paying off the house. It's knowing your children can call you if they need to. It's sitting on the porch at dusk and recognizing the breeze as enough. Chasing peace meant saying no to certain ambitions. I could have opened my own shop. I had the skill. But it would have meant longer hours, more risk, more absence. Sometimes I wonder who I would have been if I'd taken that path. More money, maybe, more recognition. But I also know I would have missed even more. The seventh rule came late. Say what you mean before it's too late. I didn't learn that one until loss forced it on me. My younger brother and I didn't speak for almost 3 years over something small, a disagreement about our mother's estate. Pride is a stubborn thing. We both waited for the other to call. He had a stroke before either of us did. I stood by his hospital bed, listening to machines breathe for him, and realized how foolish we'd been. All that silence over furniture and paperwork. He never regained consciousness. I said my apology to a room that couldn't answer. After that, I started making calls. Old friends, distant cousins. I told my children when I was proud of them. I told my grandchildren stories I used to keep to myself. Time doesn't slow down for reconciliation now. At 88, my days are smaller. I wake early, earlier than I need to. The house is quiet in a way that still startles me. I make coffee for one. I sit at the same kitchen table where my wife once clipped coupons. Staying useful kept me alive. Not owing kept me steady. Silence protected me for a while. Movement strengthened me. Loving one woman gave me roots. Chasing peace kept me from unnecessary storms. And speaking sooner, that one saved what little time was left. But here's the truth I didn't understand when I was young. The rules that keep you alive are not always the ones that make you feel alive. I survived. I provided. I endured. Sometimes I wish I had lingered more. Saturday longer at the edge of my daughter's bed when she asked for one more story. Taken the extra week off when my son wanted help building his first deck. Told my wife more often that I was afraid of losing her. I assumed there would be more time. That's the quiet mistake, not a dramatic failure. Just postponement. You postpone a conversation, a trip, an apology, a day off. Then, one day you look up and you're 88, counting the names of the people you meant to call. I'm grateful. I am. I've held great-grandchildren in these arms. I've watched sunsets I didn't earn. My body, though slower, still carries me from room to room. That's no small gift. But gratitude and regret can sit in the same chair. They do most evenings. If you're listening to me now, younger than I am, you probably think 88 sounds distant. It isn't. It arrives quietly, one birthday at a time. No announcement. Stay useful. Yes. Pay your debts. Move your body. Love faithfully. Seek peace. But don't wait to be gentle. Don't wait to speak. Don't assume you can make it up later. Later is a thin promise. I don't know how many mornings I have left. I don't say that with drama, just with awareness. The calendar pages are fewer now. When my time comes, I hope they remember me as steady. But I also hope they remember that, near the end, I finally learned to say the things that mattered while I was still here to say them. If any of this feels familiar to you, hold someone's hand tonight a little longer than necessary. 88, I can tell you this much. Staying alive is one thing. Being present while you are, that's another.